you're with ET Now. This is the India Development Debate, the only show on news television that puts the spotlight on development issues. I'm Sandeep Gurumurthy, joining you from the news center in Mumbai. Joining me in Delhi is my colleague and co-anchor Supriya Srinath. Straight to the big debate tonight. Life is not easy in the virtual world, and our political leaders are learning it the hard way. And the latest to get a taste of the hate campaign on Twitter is none other than External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj, who's been trolled for taking up the cause of an interfaith couple who were denied a passport for wrong reasons. And Sushma is not alone. In fact, worse is the case of Congress spokesperson Priyanka Chaturvedi, who along with her 10-year-old daughter has been issued rape threats on social media following a fake posting from Priyanka's Facebook account. Interestingly, the attacks against Swaraj and Chaturvedi come days after the world celebrated Social Media Day on the 30th of June.
Now, quite strangely enough, there is no word from the government apart from the usual refrain that it will crack down on fake news. Of course, a late evening news has now come in that the government, of course, has issued warnings to WhatsApp and asked for their cooperation. Remember, one of its senior members has become the victim of a venomous campaign. A woman like Priyanka Chaturvedi is at the receiving end of the trolls, and not a word from the ruling establishment. Also, barring Union Ministers Rajnath Singh and Nitin Gadkari, no other senior BJP leader has come forward to condemn the attacks. Same is the case for Priyanka Chaturvedi, who says the response has at best been muted. And it's not just about trolling. Some of the communal killings in the past are the result of fake news posted on social media. So how is it possible that these fringe elements get away with their hit-and-run approach? And more importantly, is the government paying the price for its kid-glove approach when it comes to troll mafia? The fake news menace and its impact on the social fabric of our beautiful country is the big topic of discussion and debate right here on the India Development Debate tonight. There are 10 reasons why we've chosen to do this debate and not do the NPA debate, which is what every business channel will be doing. And those 10 reasons are important reasons. There is a reason why we are willing to fight faking news. Number one, not one, not two, but close to 20 lynching cases have been reported due to fake news forwards on WhatsApp alone. There is no mean to bust fake news in India. It's an issue relegated to very niche sites. There are 200 million WhatsApp users in India, some of them first-time online users. There is no discretion that's being practiced. They forward billions of WhatsApp that go all around the country, and that can cause panic. There is no accountability of social media platforms. In fact, social media platforms have taken India for granted. European Union is pulling them up, but in India they've chosen to be callous. Is it lacks of policy, and is it also the role of mainstream media that has failed the country? Should mainstream media not help in busting these fake news items? How does one balance the freedom of speech versus vitriolic trolls? How do you clamp down on them and yet not muzzle the voices of dissent? How does one end targeted trolling, and especially the one against women? Abusive, the rant is shameful, and it all boils down to sexual threat. How does one clamp down upon all of that? And the big questions that we will be raising is the impact on social media on our lives, on our polity, and closer to 2019, is it only going to get worse? How does one reclaim the ground for nuanced, balanced opinion? You put an opinion out there in social media, you're either dubbed a chamcha or a bhak. Is there no room now for balanced, nuanced opinion in the country? And the repurpose of social media to leverage inherent merits out of this is the other point of discussion and debate that we will be doing right here on the India Development Debate tonight. And
kicking off the debate is a very special panel. Joining us on the show this evening, Vineet Goenka, member and ex-national co-convener IT cell of BJP, Priyanka Chaturvedi, national spokesperson of the Congress party. She's been a victim of some of the vicious attacks on social media. Nikhil Pahwa, founder, editor and publisher, Medianama.com, to talk about accountability of these so-called social media giants. Karuna Nandi, constitutional lawyer and media lawyer as well. Rahul Ishwar, author and activist as well, joins in on the show. Nikhil, I'm going to start off with you. 5 people killed by a mob on Sunday after rumors spread on social media that they were allegedly child traffickers. Over 12 have been killed across India since May, fueled mainly by these WhatsApp messages. And what's worrying is that most cases are in villages. To some extent, are we in denial about the extent of impact that fake news is having, that social media is having in our lives?
No, I don't think we're in denial. I think we need to understand that a large number of users who are coming on for the first time, their first experience of media is on WhatsApp, not even Facebook. And it is the most pervasive and the most used platform in the country. It is the largest media platform in the country. And so therefore we need a responsibility from WhatsApp. You can't hold WhatsApp accountable for a message that has been sent by someone else. There needs to be that kind of protection, because if you hold them liable for the content that's sent using their platform, then the platform will cease to exist. There'll be too many lawsuits, too many cases. So while they still need to behave responsibly and ensure that people who send these messages are held accountable for it, while at the same time maintaining privacy. And that's one of the solutions that we need to look at, because WhatsApp is a private messaging platform where the message between two individuals should be private, but it's taken on a public media nature where the messages, once forwarded from person to person, become essentially a kind of media publishing. And so therefore there needs to be attribution. Just like as a journalist, when you write something or you report something, there is an attribution involved. So we need, for public messages, for forwarded messages, for there to be attribution to the individual who has created that message.
You know, Nikhil, I know you've written about that, and I know you've been quoted on this very issue, and we have a separate segment where we are going to debate solutions in just a bit. But I think you raise an important point, how these private messages are taking the form of public public information and being circulated. I'll go across to Karuna Nandi before I go to the politicians and Rahul Ishwar on this show. And Karuna, while many governments across the world are perhaps battling fake news and the rise of hate speech, its impact on India is particularly telling. And what is disturbing is how many inexperienced smartphone users, often illiterate, impressionable, send billions of these WhatsApp messages every day. I mean, WhatsApp has about 200 million users here in India. Its largest market in the world is in India. Who can dispute that vast masses of illiterate population can perhaps hardly tell, you know, the difference between fake news and real news? I've been in conversations, socially, where educated, perfect professionals actually quote fake news as if it were the gospel truth. They can't tell the difference, and we expect these impressionable first-time online users to?
You make a really good point, which is that earlier when we had legacy media, the curation of what is more or less accurate and what is not was done by editors, by reporters, by correspondents, etc. Now, with the greatest democratization of speech that we ever had, in history, the burden is much greater on the average user to then become a researcher, to understand the hierarchy of news. I think the second thing that you said was much more accurate than the first, because I hear a lot of people, sometimes older people, sometimes younger people, sometimes illiterate people, sometimes less literate people, saying, I saw something, WhatsApp pe aaya tha. One, but not just WhatsApp, right? I read this on Google. Now, I read this on Google is a completely meaningless proposition, because you are then not distinguishing, for example, if you are looking at health data, between a peer-reviewed article on PubMed, which has been, properly sort of researched and evaluated, and somebody's account of, how they drank some cow urine, right? And so therefore, I think that, and when we come to the solutions, of course, we'll look into this. But I think it's a very, very difficult problem. I will also say that, when we are looking at, it's not that governments are necessarily only battling this. We also see governments sort of setting up around the world, not just in India, setting up affiliates to create fake news, because the power of the online media to sort of propagate party lines, to propagate particular ideological philosophies, and to win elections has been realized across the board in a way that it wasn't as much 5 years ago. And so we also see situations where government is propagating fake news, right?
It's a fair point.
And so whenever we, I'm on the sort of Columbia Global Freedom of Expression Committee, and we have been sort of assessing experts around the world, and we have been looking at how to deal with fake news and whether it's possible. The trouble is, your fake news is my sort of inspiring anecdote, right? And so it's very difficult to evaluate, or my, you know, apocryphal, sort of metaphorical sort of, you know, stories, right? And so it's very difficult to evaluate in the middle of the spectrum. On either end, you know, you say X went to Y place and that's verifiably false. But in the middle of the spectrum, it's very difficult to evaluate, it's very difficult to censor. So I will say that killings are, yes, in part by triggered by, say, WhatsApp forwards, right? But we also see so many lynchings, so many killings, so much trolling happening without those WhatsApp forwards, and it's the environment of hate also that is something that we have to look at front and
Sure,
center.
fair enough. I take that point. Let me take it to Priyanka Chaturvedi, and we will talk about this sort of targeted trolling in a bit, Priyanka. But the larger question on fake news, let's address that first. Fake news to some extent doesn't just come from unknown sources. It comes from verified handles of politicians, of ministers, like what happened with the football video that Kiran Rijiju, minister, tweeted and then deleted. There was also a story that Shashi Tharoor tweeted recently that turned out to be fake and he retweeted. Shouldn't verified handles, should everyone who is spreading information take more responsibility for what they put out?
So yeah, I do agree that everybody needs to take responsibility, and this is what self-censorship is all about, that you first verify if that particular source of story is right, and if the story that you're consciously putting out there has some factual you know, content in it. And it's always all right to course correct and say, okay, I have shared a news story which was not right, and so I'm going ahead and deleting it. That is also the ethical way of going about it, because many times you do end up sharing some story which may not be true, and the intent may not be malicious in any way. But the what we target as fake news and what we call fake news are quotes attributed to somebody to you know, to start a malicious propaganda against the person, to spread misinformation, to create disharmony, and to create a conversation which perhaps supports one particular narrative. In my particular incident which happened recently, there was a fake quote attributed to me, and it was with regards to the Mansoor rape, which was already generating a lot of protest. And it showed that I was, my quote that they were spreading around and making viral showed that I was standing in support of the accused. And that is when it starts creating a problem. It starts creating a feeling that being a spokesperson of a political party, I'm perhaps supporting something like this, which is absolutely incorrect, untrue, and it went viral. And there was call for violence directed at me, and which went on to degenerate into call for violence against my minor daughter. So this is what fake news can generate, and fake news can also lead to consequences, and silence of those who are in power abets this kind of spread of misinformation and zero accountability, and people feel emboldened to continue to use these platforms to spread the misinformation that that suits their purpose and that suits their narrative. That is what is a bigger challenge that our country faces at this point in time, and that is what I want to address, that this synchronized trolling, this strategic trolling, this strategic spread of wrong information, fake news, is something that needs to be handled in a more mature way by the government agencies and by the government of the day, and hold themselves accountable for the for information spreading in such a negative way, and to push a particular narrative. That is what my entire argument on this particular incident is.
No, I understand where you're coming from, and I'm sure it must be a very, very trying time for you. You know, as long as you are trolled and you're attacked, one can take it. They should never bring your families and definitely not your minor children into this. And I think no amount of anybody justifying this is going to work there. But I will take this across to Vineet Goenka of the BJP. And Mr. Goenka, isn't lynching on account of fake news on social media also a sign and a function of a failed state? Which state machinery cannot control a mob? And mobs are challenging states that are looking the other way. I mean, just on account of, you know, 100 WhatsApp messages, people go out there and they murder, you know, a mob murders someone. 5 people are murdered because people thought they were child grabbers. That was not true. Has policy making also been lax on this front? Has government been caught napping as this fake news menace rises, which spreads misinformation, fuels hate mongering, threatens to tear our social fabric? I mean, it cannot happen without the state looking away, can it? Mr. Goenka.
See, there is a thin line between trolling and, what you say is the freedom of expression. Many times one message is interpreted in two ways. Somebody would return a caution saying that be aware, there are some teams which are lifting the child. Now this can be interpreted in two ways. One, somebody is trying to caution you. Another may be that there is some kind of message being spread and there is some kind of lie being spread across the society. Now this is on the person who is reading that message, who interprets that message, and this is condemnable. Unfortunately, the system and the society both are to be condemned for this. We do not have a society which takes things in the right spirit. Many times we have to educate our people also, and that is the responsibility of the state as well as people like you and me both here. But the challenge is not with the society, the challenge is with the people who actually failed in the school of morality, and they start appointing themselves as Vice Chancellor of the University of Morality. They start teaching morality. I'll give you one example and then please tell me what do we do. November 2016, official handle of Congress, INC, shows a photograph of some people standing outside ATM trying to wait for cash, saying that there is a huge line. The same photograph has been used in February 2019 showing that they are standing for the cash because there is a shortfall of cash. Now, a fake news is been generated by a responsible political party like Congress. What do we do with the common man here? So sometimes we'll have to ask opposition also to be responsible and not make fake news, not to make noise out of these kind of things. Rather act responsible. Whenever we see some fake news or whenever we see derogatory remarks, there are two things. One, block that person. Two, immediately inform police and the administration so that administration can take some kind of actions. Now in India, we have respect to privacy. So probably police don't do an intel over private chatting. We don't have a provision to do that. That will not be lawful to do a intel on the private chatting. Now how do we see the messages which are going to you individually? So here we'll have to debate as a society. Do we put in laws which will actually frame the person who is trying to generate this kind of content to the person who is trying to spread this, forward this, or the vehicles which are carrying this? Then that can be WhatsApp as a channel, that can be the ISPs. We'll have to frame some kind of law, we'll have to debate this. Now this is not an easy question which I can individually answer, whether this is a rightful law, whether that will be a breach of privacy, whether that is necessary, but there is a time.
Okay, I take that point, and you're saying we as a society need to debate on how much is onus lies on the person who's spreading the rumor, how much is onus lies on the person who's creating it, and of course on the platform, and that's something that we will debate. That's why we're doing this show. But while I take your political point that you made, which is why I asked that question, and I think across the political spectrum, today, as of today, a minister in this government has circulated a fake video of a Brazilian kid and saying that this is how football is spreading because of the Prime Minister's efforts. I mean, so there is equal mark on both sides, but and in the political spectrum. But Rahul Ishwar, would you agree? Would you concede that policy making has been lax, that the government has been caught napping as this sort of menace of fake news has spread?
Our society has been caught napping might be my appropriate usage, because it is not only the responsibility of government. Of course, government is responsible, the media, the civil society, activists, everyone should be responsible for what's happening. Because usually we used to say that the opposite of day is night, the opposite of light is dark, but the opposite of truth is half-truth. We are unfortunately living in an age that is post-truth and half-truth. Half-truths are always used to create narratives to propel their own politics. For example, last April 6, 2008, over a fake media post, almost 2,000 people gathered to protest a rape that never happened. The whole news was that a 10-year-old girl was being raped in Uttarakhand and 2,000 people gathered to protest. But there was no rape at all. At the end of the day, the magistrate clarified. So there is a huge, tremendous potential in the new age media. Perhaps after fire and wheel, internet and the social media is one of the greatest things mankind has invented or discovered in the past many millenniums. So we are at a turning point of history, but we need to use it for a proper way. We need to have awareness, we need to have a policy framework, we need to have legal frameworks, and right-leaning activists like me has always argued for something like 66A, maybe in much more diluted and detailed manner. Maybe it shouldn't be misused, everyone concede, but at the same point of time, some kind of policy framework, legal framework should also be there. Otherwise, it is going to be a huge menace. Every day you receive a lot of fake news. Every day you receive a lot of half-truth based news, even regarding our history and present day things. So something needs to be done. Maybe it's a collective effort of government, judiciary, activists, civil society, media. These kind of discussions are very nice because it will propel a particular point of view and a thought process which will enable us to tackle this menace in the long run.
won't take away the fact that there is some amount of introspection for the media to do as well. I mean, no one's going to take away the fact that the media needs to do some amount of introspection as well. I don't think the media should sit on a high horse and say that, you know, and preach. I take that point. But Priyanka Chaturvedi, I think you wanted to make a quick point in response to what Vineet Goenka said. I have a follow-up to Nikhil Pahwa and Karuna Nandi. Priyanka?
No, with regards to whatever Vineet Goenka happens to say, you cannot whitewash your sins just because you have one particular incident to show of what the opposition has done. What he needs to understand is the narrative that has been set in since 2014, where anyone who speaks against this government is strategically silenced through trolling, incessant trolling using wild language, wild words, and even abuse and using threatening language. And Kiran Rijiju example that you're using to compare one thing that Dr. Tharoor shared is a bit unfortunate, because if you would remember Kiran Rijiju's tweet with regards to the entire Gurmehar Kaur episode and how it led to her being trolled incessantly on social media, is something that you cannot forget. These are people who hold important positions in this in the government. These are people who are not just responsible for those who voted for them, but also responsible for the entire nation that did not perhaps vote for them. So there has to be a certain sense of responsibility, and it is always expected of those who happen to be in power and also hold themselves accountable and at a higher moral ground, simply because they can change the narrative, they can change the discourse, and they can also hold such kind of narrative accountable for spread of hatred.
Right.
We don't see that coming. I would want to know from Vineet
Okay.
Goenka, very respectfully,
Priyanka Chaturvedi,
41 ministers, senior ministers, please, just another 30 seconds. 41 ministers of the troll handles that were trolling Mrs. Sushma Swaraj are followed by 41 senior ministers, and some are followed even by the Prime Minister of India. I just want to understand from him, did they hold themselves accountable and unfollow these troll handles? Did they even come forward and tweet against the kind of language that was being used for Sushma Swaraj, just because she took a decision which perhaps was not something that they all are in agreement with? So these are questions which the government needs to ask itself. They are
Priyanka
voted into
Chaturvedi,
power.
I'll have to come in there.
They have the authority, and they can make that positive change that is needed.
Right. Priyanka Chaturvedi, I will have to come in there, because I think Vineet Goenka wants to make a quick point of rebuttal. I don't want this discussion to be all about political mudslinging, because we've got experts on the show that we want to keep going back to. But Mr. Vineet Goenka, you've got 30 seconds to please make your quick point, because I want to move on to social media platforms and how they should be held responsible as well. Sure, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I don't want to answer. Yeah, so I don't want to make this to be a rhetoric political this thing, because this is a respectable show. I would like to just point out something. This is a challenge which the society is facing, and I think we all have to come together and see how do we educate our people to what laws and regulations we bring in, and should we come out with things like data sovereignty. Data sovereignty means data localization, where we force all the service providers to bring their servers to India, so that law enforcement agencies have access to their data when it is required, so that it does not become a privacy issue, but whereas whenever these kind of issues come up, they have an easy access to the data, so that the culprits and the perpetrators of the crime could be arrested. A. B, let me tell you, this is not only a social media, this is a phenomena in the society. Let me take two examples. Sanjay Nirupam ji, a very respectful congressman, spoke about Smriti Irani ji very rudely, and what was not appropriate on the television to be spoken, or Digvijay ji. Now this is actually a mindset which is coming up from seniors, which we all have to share, and we all have to change it. We'll have to tell them not to do this kind of mindset, because once Sanjay Nirupam ji spoke something, or Digvijay ji spoke something about women, that reflects the entire
Vineet
culture of the society.
I'll have to come in there, sir.
We will have to do. One last 10 seconds. Last 10 seconds. 10 seconds.
I will have to.
Bhima Koregaon.
Sure.
10 seconds. Just 10 seconds. My request to you. 10 seconds. Bhima Koregaon. Everybody jumped and said that these people are responsible. That people are responsible. And what did we find? Rona Wilson, hardcore nationalists, were responsible for this kind of activities were there. So my request to people in opposition is also, don't jump to conclusion without the investigations are over. Take the case of Kolkata church attack and the nerve rapes. Everybody said it's a right wingers.
No, I will have to come in there, Vineet Goenka. You said 10 seconds. Your 10 seconds are long over. I do want to move this debate to 1 second, Mr. Goenka. I do want to move this debate to a part where accountability should lie. And Nikhil Pahwa, this one's for you, because for most of the time, social media platforms have argued that they are media or technology companies, content curating platforms, so they are neither responsible for the content shared or created on their platform, nor can they control this user-generated content because it would infringe on freedom of expression. Can that argument hold any longer given their reach, their influence, their impact? Because it is not one, not two, but close to 20 people have lost their lives. They've been lynched across the country due to fake news forwards across various social media platforms. Can they wash their hands off this mess?
Okay, so before I get to that, I just want to respond to something which Rahul Ishwar said about bringing back 66A even in a diluted form. Let's remember that that was a law which allowed the government to arrest anyone they wanted on the basis of comments which may have been disparaging or annoying, which are all vague phrases. There are sufficient laws in place to address illegal speech, and I think we should stick to those. The Supreme Court itself said that advocacy is fine, but incitement to violence should be punished. There are laws regarding all sorts of, in case of defamation as well. So we have sufficient laws. We do not need new laws for the internet. On the point of accountability of platforms, I think what we should remember is that these platforms also enable free speech, and so therefore we have to find ways of, the platforms have to find ways of curbing illegal speech while also retaining free speech, which they allow us to do. Holding them accountable will then lead to censorship, which means that regular communication which people who do not want to spread hatred do, they will also get restricted or censored because of the whims and fancies of the platforms. They should not be judging our speech, but what we do need is attribution and accountability for people who are putting out false information, who are trolling, and that only comes in when there is a level, at least in case of WhatsApp, which is anonymous. Each message which is made forwardable or public should come with a specific message ID, which then is linked to the person's mobile number, so that law enforcement agencies can contact WhatsApp and through a legal process obtain the person's mobile number and be able to identify that particular individual and hold them to account. The problem for WhatsApp is there is no accountability for people for the comments they're making, because I forward a message to you, you forward to someone, no one knows that I've created that message. So that's my point, is that we should be allowed to report these messages. There needs to be user education by WhatsApp, and there needs to be accountability for the messages which are forwarded and thereby made available to everyone, instead of being a private P2P communication.
Right. Okay, Karunanidhi, I want you to react on the feasibility of this. I mean, would this not be in violation of privacy laws if you were to tag? This is a solution that Nikhil Pahwa has put on the table, saying that you need to tag the, each number with a forward. Would that be in violation of privacy laws? Would I want my number to be sort of shared publicly, or my ID to be shared publicly? So I want you to comment on the legal feasibility of that, and also the larger question on, have these social media platforms been callous in India because they haven't been pulled up? The EU, for instance, is reviewing their responsibilities after they failed to follow up a voluntary agreement of 2016 to remove hate content proactively. So now the government's waking up. Now we've been told that the government has called for a meeting of all these service providers, but because it hasn't been proactive enough, that's why these service providers also feel like they can get away with anything. Karunanidhi.
There was a discussion of 66A, and I was one of the council, one of the 5 or 6 councils that argued that case and argued for it to be struck down. And I think we must be very, very clear that that law should not be brought back, because what was happening there was that perfectly benign, normal communications made by people holding to account a variety of political parties was being criminalized. And girls, young girls to chemistry professors in Jadavpur were being arrested for things like normal political speech to forwarding jokes that really were very inoffensive. So let's just be clear that we can't bring back something that, we can't criminalize everything that is annoying or inconvenient to one of our citizens sent by another of our citizens. Putting that aside, I think the attribution solution is a sort of quite an interesting solution, because Look, it only comes up when there is some evidence lawfully obtained that it has in fact incited violence, or I suppose when somebody reports it as the tendency to incite violence. And when it is being reported, then the person who has received the message is in any case bringing that to court, and in such a situation, would the original creator's privacy be breached? Well, if it's forwardable and if it is clear to the original creator that this is something that they intended to forward in any case, then the privacy is not breached, because that's something that they had notice of and had decided to do. One thing that I would like to say quite clearly is that while Vineet Goenka's words sound, quite pleasant, that the BJP IT cell, the Alt News had reported, Alt News, Boom, there are a number of platforms that are quite good at busting fake news, and I think sort of educating ourselves as a society is a very important aspect towards sort of this sort of great democratization of media. And one way of doing it, of course, I was on a panel recently at a tech conclave where some school teachers were saying that, look, after the Blue Whale challenge, we feel that it is our responsibility to teach these things in school. I agree with that. But also I think it's possible that, before you come onto a social media platform, perhaps the sign-up process should require you to pass a little test on how you interact with it, and that has to be made, of course, completely. This is just an idea I have. It has to be thought through, but it would have to be made completely accessible to people who are not fully literate, fully educated, etc. But this one point I want to point out is that while Vineet Goenka and his cohorts are sort of saying fairly pleasant things, Alt News has pointed out they sort of set out a number of top fake news examples. A lot of them come from BJP IT cells and from spokespersons. One is that the BJP IT cell head Amit Malviya shares pictures of Jawaharlal Nehru with his sister and niece, claiming that there was sexual activity. Then again BJP IT cell tried to malign Ravish Kumar by sharing a mischievously edited video clip. Old unrelated Shaina NC, who otherwise is really quite reasonable, shared old unrelated images. So I think that responsibility has to be taken.
You're making a broad point there, and I think we're in agreement. Yes, you're right there. But I'm going to take a cue from a point that you made just a while back, which is that should there be a small test for people coming onto social media because they could be gullible. Rahul, I'm going to come to you. WhatsApp is owned by Facebook, and that has introduced a new function. We've spoken about one such proposed function, but a new function that allows administrators of groups to control which member can post messages, and the company is testing a plan to label which messages are forwards. But trust me, I'm on at least 10, 20 odd these groups from urban to rural areas, because I've got rural roots. The admin doesn't know a thing in most cases. They don't even know which are the forwards. They have no idea how to add people. People in far-flung areas of UP where I come from, they have no idea whatsoever. Is this move going to help at all? Because how many people can tell a fake from a genuine news item is a question that I raised to begin with.
Absolutely, I agree with Karunanidhi ji when she says we have to check this, and there is fake news from both ends of the spectrum. But some kind of framework and mechanism we need to do. I am a proud Indian and a patriot, but when I receive the particular message that UNESCO has declared Jana Gana Mana as the best national anthem in the world for the past 6 to 7 years, it basically annoys me to a great extent. Even though I would like that to happen, I really as a realist, that is never going to happen. So these kind of so-called emotionally laden fake news from both ends of the spectrum will only spoil the atmosphere, and we need to have, I don't know how far a test is practical, but we need to have some kind of social media sensitization or a social media awareness session starting in our schools itself, because our school, even from schools, it is going to be a huge thing. Our students should learn that kind of thing. We are citizens, but we are netizens too. In one sense, we have some kind of a net citizenship, and in a new global world, in a cosmopolitan world, usage of internet is going to be extremely crucial. So whether it is Facebook, whether it is WhatsApp, whether it is Twitter, whether it is other platforms, some kind of sensitization, awareness, education should be there. And let me be very honest in saying this, I am a huge advocate of awareness programs, but at the same point of time, we need some legal framework too. We need to have a two-handed approach. On one hand, there should be a strong arm of law. On the other hand, there can be a gentle, inspiring arm of awareness. So this both should go hand in hand. I know when many laws are struck down, maybe to some liberal sentiments, see, police in effect lose any law with truth that can really bite. So sometimes you need strong laws to tackle issues. We need a policy framework, we need a legal framework on one side, we need awareness, education, tests, or so many things on the other side. And both parties, whether they are centre-left Congress or centre-right BJP, we all human beings need to take more responsibility for what they tweet, what they WhatsApp, what they Facebook, or what they send out to the world. So this is a part of responsibility. There is self-censorship, there is self-responsibility. At the same point of time, some kind of a societal framework involving law and awareness should be there.
Okay, I take that point. Rahul Ishwar making a spirited case for tighter legal framework to curb this menace. But Vineet Goenka, I'm coming to you, and let's address the other issue. We started off by saying first we'll speak on fake news, and then of course on targeted trolling, a point that Priyanka Chaturvedi made as well. And it's a deeply worrying issue of targeted trolling. In the last few days alone, we've seen India's External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj and the Congress party's Priyanka Chaturvedi, of course, is with us in this panel, be at the receiving end of vitriol and abuse of the worst order. Why have we allowed social media to degenerate to such a low? And what does one make of the conspicuous silence of the entire BJP leadership to the vicious attack on their own leader by right-wing trolls? Not a word from anyone, including the women ministers of the BJP, till the media questioned Rajnath Singh and Nitin Gadkari, who made some statements today. We've had tweets being exchanged on World Social Media Day and not one message raining in these lumpen elements.
So let me answer this question in two parts. One, a solution which I have in my mind. This is not what the party proposes or the government proposes, but as an individual I can propose this solution. Every WhatsApp is connected with a mobile number. We can propose Aadhaar linking of this mobile number so that every number is attributed to some citizen of India, and we can catch hold of that guy if it is necessary someday. A. B. Bring in data sovereignty. As I said, bring in servers back to India. Tell all the service providers you will have to put a data localization policy where the data is residing within the precinct of Bharat, so that the law enforcement agencies can go and catch them if it is necessary. Third parties, we talk about something called as data commission, like Atomic Energy Commission or Election Commission, so that a framework is created around an independent body which is not been ruled by the color of the government but by the laws which is there. And we have seen fairly Election Commission or Atomic Energy Commission has been practicing very nicely in the last 70 years. So I like that we can come out with a commission which can come up there. 3. Number 4, on the part that somebody has been trolled, maybe my minister or maybe Priyanka Didi is been trolled by somebody. It is condemnable. It is condemnable, and I think the reasonably all the ministers have done. My first request to person who has been victim of that, I'll share you one incident with my own family. My wife was told in 2013, abusive, and she got calls from everybody. What she simply did is to go to the court, go to the police and file an FIR, and we got those people arrested. So the simple solution is, in place of going to the media and making a noise about it, please go to the police first so that the culprits are arrested. Once 4, 5, 6, 10 culprits are arrested, the incidences will come down because there will be cases. And
Vineet Goenka, I strongly disagree with you there. Vineet Goenka, as a woman who's very often told, one second Vineet Goenka, as a woman who's very often told, I completely disagree with you there. You go to the police, you make this hush-hush thing, they get arrested. Who gets to know about this? The reason why we are debating this today is because Priyanka Chaturvedi chose to go to media. The reason why we are having this debate today on national television is that Sushma Swaraj put out a public tweet saying, what do you think about this trolling? I don't think it should be done in a quiet way at all. But Priyanka Chaturvedi, I get you to respond to the larger point that Vineet Goenka is making. Go ahead.
Going to media creates awareness. But
Supriya, firstly, Mr. Goenka, I heard this argument from you even on NDTV yesterday. But I could not get my word in simply because I was joining through Skype. Firstly, let me tell you and let me assure you, Mr. Goenka, I'm empowered enough. I refuse to call myself a victim of this kind of vicious trolling. I'm empowered enough to know the various sections that are applicable in such kind of cases. Whether it was 2013, as recently as 2016, and now in 2018, I have been targeted through vicious trolling coming from the Bharatiya Janata Party side, a particular mindset that the ideology propagates. And I have also gone to the police station, but while I consider myself empowered enough, but I also feel as a woman I have a responsibility towards this cause of ensuring that we keep our social media platforms clean. And if that gets people talking, if that becomes a medium of discussion, if that becomes a media debate, then I think it helps the larger cause of women who are being silenced in large numbers because of this kind of targeted vicious trolling. It is unfortunate that other women leaders from your party haven't stood up in support of this kind of awareness program, but I will continue to speak up, whether it is through my case or any other case that comes across me. And I will also tell you, Mr. Goenka, I have to tell you, please, you have to stop interrupting me. I did not interrupt you. I do not know why you all get agitated when you all stand exposed, because you all believe women should stay silent. They should just head to the nearest police station and expect for instant justice. Let me give you a fact about this 2018 trolling that people are speaking about, and I am a part of this panel discussion. When I approached the Mumbai police, they were extremely cooperative, and they said, yes, we will register a case and we will start the investigation. But do you know, it took me 3 days to get an FIR registered. Even if, despite this massive discussion that we are having on media channels, the police refused to file an FIR and start investigation till I did not personally present myself and did not personally give a written note with regards to this particular problem. So why is my written email not a confirmation enough for you to start the investigation? Firstly, after the investigation begins, why is it so difficult for you to ensure that it reaches its logical conclusion? Thirdly, why is it that our police in such cases that we are unable to establish the intent and the malicious hate campaign that is being driven by a particular handle and ensure due punishment is given to such handles? That is my issue, and that is why I use these platforms to create awareness.
Okay, Vineet Goenka, quick response, and you've not answered my larger question on why is, what is behind this conspicuous silence of the party leadership? I mean, is it not incumbent on political leaders to condemn, strongly condemn, send a signal to these lumpen elements that this is not what social media should be used for? Can you not invest the enormous political capital that this government has, that the leaders of this party have, to direct people, in this manner?
Yeah, so let me just tell you on two parts. One, Amit Shah ji in his one of the addresses within the party actually told the Karyakartas to be very cautious about people who are trying to forward some kind of fake news through to him. So he said, be very cautious. So they are sensitizing people. So he speaks about this and he tells people not to get into this. A. B.
The hate speech handle.
The Prime Minister also, when he went to Sabarmati Ashram, he said that the violence of any kind is not welcome in this. Violence of any kind in this society is not a welcome. That's what the Prime Minister also said. Home Minister talked about this. Nitin Gadkari ji talked about this. Rajwardhan Rathod ji talked about this. What do you want more? And I think what we'll have to do is put in laws. We'll have to discuss how do we put in regulations, put in education. The larger question is education of this society. That there are people like Sanjay Nirupam, there are people like Digvijay Singh ji. We'll have to educate all of them. And there may be somebody. And how come you know that it's a handle of BJP? This can be a handle of Congress. This can be a handle of AAP who's trying to troll Priyanka ji. So we'll have to investigate. The investigation can be only done by the police. We cannot lead the police, right? Let us leave the matter to the police to investigate.
Who's the person who's guilty of running this handle?
They will
but I will not shut up, and I will keep raising this issue through various platforms available to me.
Vineet Goenka and Priyanka Chaturvedi,
so
I want to shift focus of this debate to an extremely emotive topic. One second, Priyanka Chaturvedi and Vineet Goenka, I want to shift the focus to a very emotive and an extremely important topic of this debate. And I think that's the most tragic part of the debate that we're going to put the spotlight on, and that is trolling of women. Invariably, it boils down to a threat over raping her or raping her family. It's always a sexual threat. I just don't understand why. And Karuna Nandi, please help me understand Why does a troll always threaten a woman with a sexual assault, with physical assault? Is this, you know, I mean, how can we allow these rogues to get away under the garb of anonymity? Is this audacity out of being anonymous, or is this just primitive male mindset where a woman is best subjected to sexual assaults?
I think it's two things. One is that if a woman doesn't agree with you on a particular issue, then she must be silenced. And so and today we see a sort of toxic cocktail of male supremacy, religious fundamentalism and patriarchy across the world. We see it, you know, there's ISIS on the one hand, then there's white supremacy, that kind of patriarchy and silencing women there. On the other hand, here we have sort of, it happens, you know, primarily you have on Twitter, I think a lot of people see a sort of vicious cocktail of Hindutva meeting misogyny, meeting sometimes, not always, the BJP and the Bajrang Dal and their affiliates. And so there we see that not only people like Priyanka Chaturvedi or Atishi Marlena or other people, you know, women across political parties, but also Sushma Swaraj ji, who is the country's foreign minister, right? There's absolutely terrible things being said, misogynist things, but also we don't see them being reined in. Anonymity, let us be clear, anonymity is a right and anonymity is something that's very important. However, once you violate the law, once you violate the criminal law in this case, right, you lose that right, you lose that veil. And the platform has a duty and does reveal who the person is behind that anonymous veil. Now, a lot has been said and if you notice, it's primarily by the sort of people persuaded by the right wing on this panel that we need more laws, right? Now, the point is that at the moment we have a whole slew of laws regarding these issues. Some of them are in fact too broad. And the point is that you can't shift the burden of hate speech that the affiliates of your party and your party itself is creating. And the reason that, you know, I am talking extensively about the BJP is because they have a lot of power right now. They are in government. Tomorrow if it's the Congress, tomorrow if it's the Aam Aadmi Party, if it's
I take that point, Karuna.
you know, if it's Mamata Banerjee,
right.
You know, we would speak about them.
Sure.
But the thing is that, you know, we have to be just really clear that first you have to clean up your own house, and secondly, you can't keep shifting the burden on the victim and saying, you go file an FIR.
Okay, I take that point. We've debated that, Karuna. Allow me to.
Controlled by
Okay.
your own government.
Okay.
Then it's a difficult thing.
Okay, allow me to interrupt you. I take your point there, and I think the onus, and I think the government is answerable because it's in power. But I think the problem isn't necessary right-wing troll or left-wing troll. I think trolling is a problem, and there are problems on both ends of the ideological spectrum, and there are people who are a subject of hate and vitriol on both ends of the spectrum. But Nikhil Bawa, very simple question: is Twitter, are these platforms doing enough to counter abuse? I mean, apart from blocking and suspending accounts, what does Twitter do? I mean, and does India have a robust cybercrime cell that books people for sexual and violent threats online? Priyanka spoke about her own experience in filing an FIR. You know, do we have a robust mechanism in place? Nikhil?
So, I don't think we have a cybercrime cell or a policing strength of the kind that's required to check any kind of illegal speech online, because the scale of the problems. The platforms have to step in. They have stepped in, they have tried to do things. For example, reporting people is a little more effective than it was, let's say, a couple of years ago on Twitter. I don't think this is clearly enough. They need to do more to address it. They need to also perhaps look for particular phrases and words and allow people to also filter those specific words and phrases. At this point in time, if you're a verified account, you have a lot more features where you can choose to follow only verified accounts. From a legal perspective, I think there are sufficient laws regarding hate speech, regarding any kind of defamation, regarding threats, and it's merely about the implementation of these laws. And because really bringing in another law makes no sense if it's not going to be implemented. It will just be a duplication of laws, and then the police, what they do in that instance is quite often they charge people with all the laws.
Right.
And we've seen that in case of 66A, we've seen that in case of all sorts of censorship as well.
I've just got the last 3 minutes on the show left, and Rahul Ishwar and everybody, please keep it brief because I do want to cover quick closing comments and some more ground there. And Rahul Ishwar, coming to you, one of the biggest sources for abusive trolls in India, and you know, like we've been saying, is lack of responsible commentary. I mean, you know, very often there is hardly any responsible commentary. Has the place for nuanced opinion been completely elusive in India? You're either a chamcha or you're a bhakt. There seems to be no middle ground anymore. Is this a sign of public discourse, and has that what it has boiled down to?
The world lies in shades of grey. You know, white and black only exist in mythology. The shades of grey are truth. You know, I'm a proud Hindu. I lean right wing, but you know, at the same point of time, it is unfair to compare us to either Ku Klux Klan in US or even the ISIS kind of a Islamist. Yeah, we are a bit too loud, I concede. There is a lot of room for improvement, I concede too. There are, yes, some people are faceless and some people are hate mongers. It's the truth, everyone knows. But there needs to be a very responsible center-left and a center-right kind of a commentary, so that there is a very informed debate between the two wings or two orientation or two different camps or many different camps, shades of camps. India really wants such kind of a nuance and debate where debating is more of intellectual passion and philosophical discussion rather than physically threatening and abusing their family members. I believe in some years now, as we are growing, we will have that nuance, we will have that depth of discussion, we will have that academic and intellectual quality. Maybe, you know, I hope all these kind of debates will inspire our both right and left to have much more nuanced and balanced debates.
There has to be space for nuance in both the centre right and the centre left. Again, 30 seconds, Vineet Goenka, coming to you first, and then Priyanka, to you for the last word. You know, Vineet Goenka, the Prime Minister says social media has democratized discourse, and there's no denying that it has made communication direct, real-time, given everyone a voice, given everyone access to a market. But how does one take it back to the original idea with which social media was celebrated? Because what is now becoming of it is a sort of a generator of fake news, vitriolic, polarized content, one that's killing people with fake news. How do we take social media back and repurpose it to its true potential?
As I said, we should link mobiles with others, so that the mobiles which have been used for linking with WhatsApp and other platforms can be identified. Data localization, data sovereignty, then there should be rules and regulations for not only the people who write the content but also people who forward it, the platforms which cover that. This is a debate which has to be happened, and unfortunately we will also have to go back to not only the juniors but also seniors like Digvijay Ji and Sanjay Ji, to teach them, educate them how do they behave in the social life, public life, so that our juniors who follow them should not learn the wrong things from them. I think that's a part of society, and the system both has to be put in place.
You know, if given a chance, I'd like to do a crash course for everybody, both in the BJP and the Congress, and I wonder if both of you will agree to me on that. But Priyanka Chaturvedi, a quick last word to you. How does one, and broadly taking a cue from what Sandeep said, how does one repurpose social media? Priyanka Chaturvedi, how does one repurpose social media to leverage its inherent strength? It's supposed to be a platform for exchange of ideas. It's a great enabler in natural calamities, medical emergencies. How do you go back to all of that?
I just want to tell you something, Supriya, my own experience on social media. When I was on Twitter, when I joined, I was one of the early users of Twitter, and I have used it for spreading word about my NGO, what we were doing with regards to educating young children, what we are doing with regards to helping out in case of emergencies. Somehow that entire initiative is lost because we are only fighting for some causes that we, we hold dear to our hearts these days. And unfortunately, everything's become black and white zone. Either you are a patriot or you are an anti-national. If you support the government's stance, you become a patriot. If you don't, you become an anti-national. I find it very unfortunate that Mr. Goenka continues to harp on two particular leaders. He refuses to acknowledge the fact that misogyny and sexism and words for women have been used even by the Prime Minister himself. and chief ministers of various states which are governed by the Bharatiya Janata Party. So till they don't start holding themselves accountable, actually look within their own hypocrisy, till then we can just keep hoping for something to change. Till then we will continue to have this whataboutery discussion.
Okay, but on that note, completely out of time on this edition of the India Development Debate. It's been a fascinating discussion, and I can't thank this wonderful panel enough for joining us. Priyanka Chaturvedi, Karuna Anandi, Rahul Ishwar, Nikhil Pava, and of course Mr. Vineet Goenka. Thank you very much for sparing time and being with us this evening. We chose to consciously put the spotlight on fighting fake news, because I don't know about you, but the negativity on social media, the vitriolic tweets, the hate-mongering on WhatsApp messages that I sometimes get during the course of the day really depress me. I'm often left wondering, was I taught wrong that we humans are inherently good-hearted? Because some of the anger and the deep hatred out there makes me question the very foundation of what I was brought up with.
Social media has given a voice to the last man standing. It has undoubtedly democratized the discourse, but has also given anonymous and faceless trolls audacity to get away with filth. Accountability to deal with this mess lies not just with the government or social media platforms, but we the people as well. And only then will we be able to put social media to its stated purpose. Thanks for being with us in this edition of India Development Debate. Up next is Top 10 at 10. Good night.